for Joseph Baba Ifa. Baba knows the way, we follow the signs. He walks with the Orisha through sacred lines. He speaks with the ancients, he honors the drum. He carries the wisdom where we all come from.
Hey family, thank you for tuning in to Our Roots podcast. Where only the strongest roots see the light, brought to you by Botanica Candles and More with myself, Joseph Baba Ifa. And if you haven't had the opportunity, please hit that subscribe button. So guys, we are live this week. A little bit of a different dynamic. Our brother Phil is on vacation, which is well-deserved. Just so you guys are aware, one of our associates, Mr. Kalen, is going to be working the boards back there. So Phil, I'm sure he'll come back from Dubai very soon. We love you, Phil. All right. So I know we have some questions and things like that. A couple of notes I want to make for all the members, just to keep you aware. You're going to be getting a newsletter this week talking about our different live dates for you guys. Classes are still going on, guys. Hey, Aboru Aboye Ifasaking. Classes are still going on. The Moyuba class is available. The 4-week curriculum is available. We're developing some pretty good stuff on our end, just solidifying some new classes and whatnot before we release them. We have a really great function coming up. Be on the lookout for the announcement about the workshops that we're going to be having here in Orlando for all that want to fraternize and learn Ifa with us in person live. It's going to have a bunch of great components, whether a live Ifa divination. Oh, Trinity, thank you, sir. Bendiciones, I'm on the road. Awesome. We'll get to Trinity right now with the question. And, we're going to be having a workshop here in Orlando, and it's going to have a bunch of great components, whether it's the live Ifa divination that'll take place, learning about herbs, and it's going to culminate in a nice gala-type interaction where we can mingle, grow, collaborate, etc. So be on the lookout for that. Awesome. So, Borui Boy Arab, blessings. So let's go ahead and go back to the question screen. Remember, super chats are available and live, guys. Bendiciones, Trinity, I'm on the road, but want to know the significance of doves in Ifa and of an Orisha defending you in an initiation. So when we're talking about doves, the word for pigeon is eyele, but I believe the word for the dove is adaba, if I recall, referring to the white one. Now, this animal has a lot to do with prosperity. That's why it's one of the favorite animals of Orisha Aje. This animal basically is said to bring prosperity. It also has to do with achieving goals and whatnot, making reference to the rate at which it flies, from an accelerated standpoint. The Orisha defending you is the Orisha that's trying to provide, really. So if you're in your hand of Ifa and you come Ireo wo elese Aje, Aje is the one providing or defending you, where if you came Ayewo or negative, in our tradition, we would say Aje onire, or Aje will provide, or Aje is the one trying to provide the ire, or the blessing. So it's basically the Orisha that's most focused on your progress at that moment, besides the other Orishas that are mentioned, and obviously your guardian Orisha. So, next. Do I have to do Santo in Cuba, or can I do it in the States? I am a believer that Orisha and Ifa can be recreated in any part of the earth that will provide the conditions to do so. So now I have heard from some Isheshe brothers, they brought up the point that to initiate into the priesthood of Egungun, it is ideal to go back to Nigeria, but not a prerequisite. So Orisha and Ifa initiation can take place anywhere on earth as long as the climate and conditions and fauna permit and facilitate.
Baba knows the way.
All right, here we go. All right, then. Oh, my gosh, Beniel. What are you doing, man? Thank you. Good Lord, please text me later. We're going to come out with the Obebara video. I think I'm going to record it today, I think. Good God, bless you. May Horumila bless you always. Please ask a question, whatever you want, man. God bless you. All righty, then. Brandon, is it recommended for Otura Yekun to get a palo pot? Okay, so here's the thing. In Otura Yekun, which is also known as Otura Buye, you have to be very careful. Not that palo is detrimental, but I'm more worried about the person's tolerance level and maturity level there. Because in that sign at around 3 in the morning, Eshu would transform, or El Legua would transform into Eshu, which is seen as the more nefarious aspect of that duality. It's not that you can't get scratched. You know, it's a very spiritual Odu. But before you get scratched, I would highly recommend receiving a Gungung. Even though they're two completely different religions that don't have an effect on each other, I would love it if you were an Ifa practitioner before going through, whether it's División, Voodoo, Palo, or whatever, have your Agungung first so that when those energies assimilate your life, they're organized. Because no matter what, everybody falls under Agungung. And by the way, hello to my kids. Hey, guys.
Baba knows the way.
Thank you. Bendiciones, Baba. Any advice for Ogunnameyi or Mochango? Well, we've touched on this theme a couple times. It actually started a little bit of controversy because, you know, some people misinterpreted what I said or misunderstood. And that Odu is where Shango practiced Palo, and Obatala did not want him practicing Palo. But he persisted anyway, and he dragged his younger brother Ogun, or older brother, depending how you look at it, his brother, into the practices of Mayombe, where Shango escaped, but Ogun was about to be put to death because Obatala had a death penalty on the practice. So, in my opinion, Ogunnameji doesn't need Palo, but if they want Palo, do so judiciously. But if my child was Ogunnameyi and was identified to initiate as a priest of Shango, I might not scratch them. Depends on their desire. But if they don't have to, I wouldn't do it. Eddie, Boruboy Ababa, could you elaborate on the Odu of Iroso Gang for a son of Shango? Bendiciones. So, Iroso Gang speaks heavily of the Orisha Shango. It's actually one of the Odus that speaks of Shango's ingredients, specifically the Osun Naburu, which is the red powder that ultimately stained the pigeon's feet in that Odu. Because Orumila was, I don't know if he was performing divination or a medicine, and the pigeon landed on the red powder and wrote the Odu Iroso Egang, or Iroso Ega. And that let him know he needed to leave immediately because there was going to be a burglary and an assassination attempt. That Odu is why we don't tie the pigeon's feet, because it might give us a message that saves our life. But specifically for Shango, that Odu, I believe, speaks of when Shango went into the middle of the town and started playing bata, or when he entered into the towns playing bata, and because of it, he became king. For the son of Shango, it's really lovely. You know, it's a great Odu. It speaks a lot about the color red, whether it's the red parrot feather, whether it's the Osunaburu and the pigeon's feet. This is actually one of the Odus why Shango is allowed to eat pigeon. Because had it not been for Shango, the pigeon would have never had the red powder on his feet. Because you have a lot of houses out there that say, no, Shango and Yemaya don't eat pigeon. That's not coherent. So Shango speaks heavily there, yeah, absolutely. But if you're interested in Anya or Ayang, not a bad path. If you're musically oriented, pigeon sacrifice, you know, get with your elders for sure. But there's a lot of great stuff there. And be careful with your legs, because in that sign it speaks of irritations of the skin, lack of circulation. Lead a healthy, active lifestyle as much as possible. Can you speak about the sign Irete Untedi for the Omoelegua? So, Irete Untedi is an Odu that speaks of betrayal, unfortunately. In that sign, the king had a ring, and his servant stole the ring. And the servant hid in the house because he kept stealing from the king. But he was actually stealing from the king's bedchamber, and he hid inside of a box. And when he did that, you know, the king noticed things were missing. He kind of felt weird. The dog, who was actually Eshu, came running in and started barking at the box, where the king was like, something's in there, you know, to the royal guard to stick a knife in it. And when they did that, when they stuck the swords in, they opened the box, and the servant was dead, and the ring fell out. So the king was like, of all of you, I've seen all of you. Of one, I've seen one. Of one, I've seen two. Of three, I've seen three. Something to that effect. And, you know, so Eshu there was a revealer. He was somebody that was trying to show his children or his person, hey, these people are betraying you. So Irete Untedi for the child of Eshu, you have to be very careful with betrayal. Because people are either trying to steal from you, utilize you, take what you've worked for, because they think you don't deserve it, or because they think you got it easily. So in that Odu, don't let people in your house too much. It actually speaks positively of dogs. Eshu is actually one of the Orishas most closely associated to that animal. All points of interest. Mimi, can you still pray and honor your Ori despite not being initiated? Yes. I'm still trying to educate myself on the religion. See the other part there.
I'm sorry, it says itself, but the Ori concept resonates me deeply.
Okay. So, yeah, you can definitely still attend to Ori. You might not be able to do it necessarily how it's done within Ifa or Orisha, but you could wake up, kneel immediately, face the east, rub your head back and forth, asking for all that you need and want, honoring your destiny, having a moment of gratitude and reflection, and ask for you want and invoke what you want. And that's a great way to invoke Ori. I wouldn't wash it or apply too many things, but generic things are coconut water, shea butter, efun. I would stick with that, apart from just cool water in general, which we usually accomplish through just bathing. Cedric, could you tell me about the Odu Otura Iwori? Otura Iwori is Otura Pompeyo. A lot of information there. The first thing that has to be done is opening up all the sinks and the shower and all the places that release water, because Otura Iwori has an egun, or spiritualities that live within the pipes of their home, that could actually cause, lack of progress or create obstacles. So that's the first thing. Utilizing different liquids for baths and fluids for baths are great. It speaks specifically about sweet water, water like river water. The ocean really isn't a great point there, because in that sign, the fish tried to leave the river or the creek for the ocean, thinking he can compete with the whale, the dolphin, and the shark, and he got ate up. So in that Odu, the river is ideal. I don't recommend visiting the space too frequently, but having some river water at your house to pour over yourself and things like that is great. And it's better to be a big fish in a small pond than anything else in the ocean. So stay where you're winning in that Odu.
Baba knows the way.
Oh, thank you. Very nice. Leobardo, have you heard of or seen the Criollo Ori icon? What's your thoughts on it? Oh, God. Thank you, Richie. If you have any questions, let us know. When I give Ori, I give it in a purely Isheshe fashion or context. I saw the Lukumi Ori icon, and I was very dissuaded from providing it. Based on my study, I wasn't a huge fan of it, to be frank with you. I know those are things I can't talk about on camera, but to be short, no, it's not something I'm a huge fan of or that I personally give. Just based on theory and analyzing, how it's constructed and, what's given for it. I've seen it a couple different ways, and in my opinion, it doesn't really line up with scripture, whether it's in the Lukumi or Isheshe. But I think it was incorporated because we didn't have the Ori icon. We didn't have the artisans to be able to confection it and create it. But now that we have so much great Isheshe information and the opportunity to learn these things, I personally, the Isheshe Ori is the one that really, motivates me and generates that faith. Nothing against anybody who does the Lukumi one, but I still haven't received an explanation or a dissertation as to why that's a better option than the Ori one in Isheshe, other than money or possibly, a lack of knowledge.
Baba knows the way.
Thank you. Okay, where we at? Yeah, that's Richie, yeah. No, Richie, please ask a question. Thank you. Awesome. Oh, Phil's in Dubai, yeah. Bring back chocolate, Phil. Should Ogunda Mei do Ifa? Absolutely. If they have all of the characteristics, absolutely, they're eligible. All of the Meis, if they have the desire and the characteristics, eligible. And when you do Ifa, reach out, and I'll tell you why Ogunda Mei should do Ifa. I can't talk about it on camera. But best wishes. Are the ebos and adimus in Ocha the same as it is in Ifa? So here's the thing. The word ebo, I think, is really overused. The word ebo means sacrifice. Now, there's plenty of different ebos. You have ebo iwapele, which is the sacrifice of good character. You'll hear, ebo pomfa or ebo eriateo, which makes reference to the ebo performed on the tray of Ifa. Then you have the ebo eni, or the ebo ate, erindi logun, which is the ebo of the mat that's done with the cowrie shells. All of these are ebos. But they do look different, right? But ultimately, I think it's overused because someone will be like, oh, I did an ebo with black-eyed peas to Eshu. That's an ebo, but it's not really an ebo. Like, for people that actually practice Ifa and that are rolling, if you say that, they're going to get a little confused because the first thing they're going to think is, were you moving the packet or the shell? It's better to use terminology like adimu and things like that so it can be easily distinguished because it can get convoluted very quickly. But ultimately, the ebos do look different. The format, it's a little different, but, you're still moving in circular motion while making incantation. But, yeah, they're a little different. But they're all towards the same cause, even though they might not always accomplish the same thing because they have different purposes. Can you speak about the Odu Osai Wori? Osai Wori is also known as Osawori War or Osawo. This is the Odu of the famous war between the goat and the tiger, where the tiger or the leopard would act like the goat's friend because he really wanted to eat him. The goat knew this, visited Ababalao, was told to perform a bow with rocks and corn. He kept it in his satchel, and, the tiger was going to eat him. And after a while, the tiger asked the goat, what are you chewing on? When in reality, the goat was chewing corn. He pulled a rock out of his satchel and said, no, I'm chewing on rocks. And the leopard got scared and was like, all right, I'll holler at you later. And he never attacked the goat. Because he said, bro, if this guy could chew on rocks, he'll chew on me. So Sawo says, be careful who you hang out with. Not everybody's your friend. You might not have any friends, and that's okay. Because most successful people don't. Impression is everything. When you look at a bodybuilder, sometimes they don't look as good as we think they look. But if you tan a certain way and hit the pose at a certain angle, they might look bigger, So it's the same thing with Osawo. Look like what you want people to think you are. Amanda Bendizione, can you go on the sign Osawani Irei Shekun for a child of Shango? So Osawani is also known as Osaloni. Irei Shekun, I would imagine, is really Irei Ishegun, which means a blessing of accomplishment or overcoming obstacles or enemies, or overall just achieving something. For the child of Shango, Osaloni, that's the Odu of the slave revolts, where people stopped, accepting being enslaved by other people. It speaks of the ancestors and how they revolted for their freedom. That's also the Odu of the war between the lion and the canary. And if you can interpret Shango as the lion, in that Odu, you have to have a lot of, you have to be very, you have to be a pacifist. You have to take things in stride and be calm and not become enraged by anything or everything. Because in that sign, I guess Shango became jealous of the canary because he could fly and he was, he was good looking and stuff like that. And the canary was like, why do you want to kill me? You're the king of the jungle. I mean, what do you have to envy anybody? But Shango the lion didn't want to accept it, and he chased after the canary till the canary had no choice but to fly off of a cliff. And the lion fell to his death because he was so blind with rage trying to kill the canary. So the Odu says if the child of Shango has to know how to relax and not take things so personally or focus on what others are doing. They have to focus on what they're doing. So that's the best advice I can give.
Baba knows the way.
Oh, thank you. Oh my gosh, guys, thank you very much. I think I know who that is. Why'd you do that? It's too much money. Thank you. I'll talk to you later. I know exactly who that is. Ask a question. Thank you, guys. That's a lot of money. Jesus, God. GB, can you speak on the Odu Oturanico for the child of Odudua? Ashe, Baba, thank you. Thank you. Mira, Otura Niku, for the child of Odudua. I mean, if they have all the characteristics, they desperately need to do Ifa, in my opinion. They're desperately meant to become Awo Orumila. I can't really explain why too much, but it's definitely there. If you do Ifa, reach out to me. I'll tell you why. Or if you do Ifa here, we'll definitely tell you. But there is a story about Odudua there. It speaks about Awo Sawori, when he was a son of Odudua, and they were separated. And many years later, Sawori, or Sajoni, as it's known in the story, came back and saved his father, not knowing it was his father, and his father was Odudua, who was the Onife. So they fulfilled debts with each other, and then they continued life. So unfortunately, that Odu speaks of separation from the father, single parenthood. The person has to learn a lot on their own, and the only honest mentor they're going to have is their Oluo by way of Orumila. So desperately needs to do Ifa there. If they're uneligible for Ifa, Orisha, no questions asked. So Tura Orire is someone that has to have a consecrated head, no question. October. Can you explain why is white light on a person's head? The white light, if you are able to see that, like through the chakra of the third eye and things like that, if Olodumare is seen as Olorun, or the sun, any extension of him is enlightened. So being that Ori is the extension of Olodumare or Olorun, or our supreme creator within our head, that's why you can see the light emanating from that chakra. So
Baba knows the way.
thank you guys. Man, I need to go live more often. Woo! Perez, can you share your interpretation of the Odu Ofunkana for Omo Badala? Absolutely. Ofunkana is one of the Odus that speaks most heavily of Obatala. That's the Odu of the rabbit. And in that Odu, there's various versions where either the rabbit was Obatala's enemy or his son. If he was his enemy, in that sign, the rabbit would steal things from Obatala, and Obatala caught him and ate him. That's one of the Odus where you give rabbit to Obatala. But the other version is it was his son, and people were trying to kill him and attack him. They started cursing his feet. Obatala blessed him with the white chalk and made him fast and made him beautiful. And he was able to survive and escape through his speed. That Odu, specifically with Obatala, is you want to be on good terms with your guardian angel, because things are going to be as good as you want for them to be with that energy. If you behave in a way that Obatala doesn't appreciate or aren't contrite with him and honest and transparent with your actions, you don't want your Orisha to turn on you, because that happens in that Odu. So behave, do as Ifa instructs and Obatala instructs. Not a bad Odu to get crowned in. Funkana. Lulu, can you speak on why the Hutia is important to give to Eleguano Betwa? Oh, yes. So this is a Padaki that not many people have, but the question's there, so here we go. And this Odu was where Orumila helped the Hutia, but when you read the description of the Hutia in the story, it sounds like a possum, because it says that it was hanging from the tree with its tail. Now, I have heard of a species of a Hutia that, it's like the Hutia Conga, which, goes up trees and hangs and all these other things. I've never actually seen it. But at the end of the day, the Hutia is the rat. I just want to throw that out there, because Hutias are like $1,500 right now. There were no Hutias in Africa. It was the rat, or Eku, or Okete, or Eku Asan, or any of these other types of breed or species of rat. It's ultimately the same rat you can get at Pet Supermarket. I just want to throw that out there. Because Obetwa has to give a rodent to Eshu expeditiously. So neither here nor there. They say that the ape or the chimp took the rat to Orumila's house to become a person. Orumila gave them the elixir, and the rat, over the course of 7 days, started becoming a human being, or being able to walk on its hind legs and things like that. It was atrocious looking based on the description, though. This is one of the Odus why our initiation processes take 7 days or a week, because they say from a celestial standpoint, it takes that many days or rotations of the earth to convert somebody into a human being, right, via initiation. Because before then, we're just, organic matter. neither here nor there. You know, the rat completely changed. It was rude to the monkey. They said, "Oh, how dare you? You know, you were nobody before Orula." She's like, "Oh, I'm gonna kill Orula." Whatever. So Orula actually invited over his brothers Elegua, Ogun, and Ochosi to his house for dinner. And the rat was actually sneaking into Orumila's walls and listening to everything and confabulating against him with Osain, telling him all his secrets. They were going to create a plot to kill him. But the warriors, being hunters, told Orula, shh. And they started listening and listening and listening and listening. And they say that Elegua specifically punched through the wall and grabbed the rat out. And Orula was terrified, and Ogun and Ochosi were like, "Oh, man." And Orula was like, "What are you doing in my wall?" And, "Oh, how dare you? Everybody thinks you made me, this, that, freaking out." And Orula said, "Okay, I see what's going on here." And the warriors said, "What do you want us to do?" He said, "Do what you want." And they ate him, you know. So that's why you give the rat to Eshu and Obealara, right? There's a bunch of other themes about that process that I could talk about, but this is an open forum. But if anybody wants to learn about that ceremony, there's a lot of rich information there. So, but that's why. Gives progress, you know, it takes away negativity, etc. Song of Jay, can you share your knowledge on Ochedura? Thank you and God bless. One of the men that initiated me into Ifa is Ochedura. My godfather, Mayubona Abetico Ochedura from El Cerro. And one of the most, if not the most, I don't know if I've ever met a Babalao more knowledgeable than Mayubona. He is rumored to have the most ample Ifa library, I mean, at least within Cuba, you know. Initiator of Badala, just a wondrous Babalao, you know, stellar Babalao, you know, amazing Babalao. His recollection, the amount of verses he knows, his library, director, Oba Ifa. He was really one of the first men to inspire me to try to achieve that position, which luckily I was able to with the information he gave me, with the tutelage, along with my other elders, such as my godfather Pedro, my uncle Barbarito, one of our elders, Katai Yobe. You know, just really great. My godfather, Yoeli Woriturale. But Mayubona, he's in a class of his own. And what I'm going on in this tangent about is Ochetura has all of those prospects. You know, Ochetura is also known as Achetura, which means the person's blessed. There's so many things I could talk about there, but one of the secrets of Ochetura is manifestation. It says that the Ashe, and I can't wait to come out with the video on Ashe as well. They say that the Ashe, it lives within the mouth of the practitioner or human being. Whatever we say will happen. So we can only manifest positive things. That doesn't mean we can't talk about negative things, but we can't manifest them. So what do I mean? If somebody comes for a reading, I can't be like, "You're going to die." That's not helping nobody. But what I can say based on the Odu is you need to be careful with this because it could lead to this. Try to avoid this because this could be the result. Ochetura says that's how we have to communicate. Because words are incantations. They're spells, you know. So Ochetura says you could do whatever you want. Whatever you want to accomplish, you're going to. The hardest part there is identifying what it is that you really want so you don't waste time and energy. Because Ochetura is where Ashe was born. The talent, the grace of Ifa. You just have to utilize yours, you know, constructively. Can you, Eternal Child, can you speak about Otrupon Ogbe for the child of Shango? And that Odu was where the child of Shango had war. And they didn't know how to win. They did divination. Otrupon Ogbe con Wow was revealed, where Ifa said they needed to provide an offering of ayang to the palm tree or give a drumming. And when Bata started playing, they started playing, you know, to the palm tree. And they actually were able to get Shango's attention. When they got Shango's attention, the child was like, "Yo, these people are trying to kill me. Shango threw the lightning bolt, no more problem." So the Odu there says that the child of Shango, regardless of whatever else they do in the religion, they have to crown Shango there. and they have to make offerings to the palm tree. If they have the characteristics, they might get involved in the drum. But it's one of the best odus for a child of Shango. Even though Trupon con Wow in general is a little bit sticky. But one of the best offerings you can make there, besides a drumming to Shango, is a turtle. For reasons I can't mention here. But definitely the person has to offer Shango a turtle for their life to change. George, how you doing, brother? Bendiciones, Baba. Please elaborate on Oshefun. Oshefun really can do whatever they want within the spirituality of Ifa. If they have the characteristics, they should do Ifa and become Babalawo. That's where Oromila started wearing this, if everybody can see it. That's where the Babalawo started having a thicker bracelet than everybody else to be able to be identified and recognized for all the positive qualities that we should be exhibiting at that moment. Avoid pork, if possible, even though it's delicious. And, Shefun, how you take care of yourself is how you're going to live. It's one of the residents of the garden of power known as Obashe. So the person spiritually can get wherever they want to go. But Ifa definitely is the way, Blessings. Lulu, is it recommended to pray the prayers of your sign of hand of Ifa? Well, here's the thing. I don't recommend that because the person does not have the ashe or the blessing to be able to invoke or recite Ifa. To be frank with you, other than priests, we really don't have to learn prayers because the prayers are more for practice. When I say practice, I mean ceremony, initiations, pieces of work, etc. But I'll be frank with you, I cringe a little when I see people with hand of Ifa praying their Odu. I'm incapable of saying anything to anyone who's not a godchild, but it's unnecessary and I think a little counterproductive. I think if you're somebody that wants to pray or recite Orisha or Ifa, depending on what your possibilities are, save up the money and crown or initiate. Sean, hi Joseph. Can you break curses remotely like if a person lives in another country? And can Leaf of Life be used for... Where are we here? Okay, and can Leaf of Life be used for open roads? Thank you in advance for the reply. You can break curses from afar because you can perform a bow from afar. The Leaf of Life or Siempre Viva can be used for anything. So it's all about the invocation because that's a perfect plant. It'll do whatever you need it to, especially if what's obstructing your roads is negativity. Baba, what are your thoughts on reconnecting Lukumi with Isheshe now that we have more access to info from Yoruba land? I think it needs to happen. I think we just need to talk about things that unite us rather than what divides us. I was actually, my wife recently crowned a Shango. Congratulations, honey. The most perfect Orisha process I've ever been involved with or seen. Not because I was working it, but, there was literally nothing else to do to assimilate that person with the owner of the religion, the king of the religion, which is Shango. What I'm saying is I was at a drumming yesterday, and one of the brothers there was an Isheshe practitioner. He's originally Lukumi, but, he manifests from an Isheshe standpoint. He's going through a completely traditional curriculum, 10-year plan, like completely immersed and sacrificing to achieve, his title within, that space. And I remember we were talking because we haven't had too much of a chance to speak before then, but really intelligent guy. And, I told him, I said, brother, I've had fabulous teachers within Isheshe, who've taught me how to consecrate deities over there. He had Ifa done Criollo. And I told him, I said, the only thing that really divides us is the Yang Ifa thing, which really is a mute point. Everybody has their own opinions of it. And, I don't see why it needs to separate us. Because there's been Yang Ifas around for centuries, it's documented. I think another thing is we want to make sure that we esteem each other. When I look at gentlemen like Chief Popola and how supportive he's been to the Lukumi community, and saying that everything we're doing is right, that's what we need more of, because when you look at us from a Lukumi standpoint, not that we need the confirmation, but it is nice because you could have an estranged relationship with your father, and you might be like, yeah, I don't want I don't care about my father's opinion. But at the end of the day, everybody wants that confirmation from their parents or their elders, you know? So it's the same thing with us when we have this amazing tradition that was given to us by Africans in Cuba, and we've maintained it for 400 or 500 years. You know, you want to have that confirmation, you know? Not that we need it, but I'd be lying if I said we didn't want it. And luckily, we've been able to get it by some of the highest, you know, title holders over there. You know, Arabas, you know, however many there are now, the kings over there, like, they've recognized Cuba as the new land. I mean, that's why you have organizations like Ile Tuntung and all that over there, you know, regardless of being Isheshe based and focused, you know, they've been able to recognize, no, Lukumi is fully functioning and really doesn't need anything. The whole channel is really about that, like finding the common points to reconnect. What I don't think needs to happen is an obstruction of dogma. I think over-hybridization could destroy both of them. Like, for example, I'm a Lukumi Babalao, but, like, when I consecrate a Gungun, I do it in complete Isheshe fashion. Obiabata, pertinent verses, completely Isheshe. Because I don't want to, you know, convolute too much. But I'd be lying if I said I don't take certain concepts and incorporate them where there's space. Like, if you look at both ceremonies, and you can actually see where each of them fills in the blanks for the other. So, you know, the way we try to give deities here at Botanica Candles and More is when I give you something, I don't want to have to look backwards. Like, I don't want to leave anything out. I don't want to give any of, you know, our detractors the opportunity to say, oh, but they didn't give you this when they gave you a Gungun. Our Gungun is the most complete Gungun that can be given, other than actually crowning it, which is not within my scope. But do I think it'll actually happen? I doubt it. You know, and it's wild because, you know, when you dedicate your whole life to this spirituality and you see, you know, two clans that should be united and functioning, even if it's parallel, not being able to, you know, maybe my kids will see it, but I don't know if we will, because with the internet and all the other things and ego and money, you know, it's becoming very convoluted. I would love it. You know, I'd love to see more of that. And that's why we really just provide an open forum here for everybody to say their piece, because we're really unbiased. You know, we just want to put the information out there so you guys can come to the best conclusions for yourself and your families. Soprano, really interested in more information and knowledge. Any recommendations for a beginner? Select a godparent. Mentorship is key. You know, and it's not that parts of your journey aren't going to be independent, but every now and again we need to have that resource to be able to confirm things with, because if not, it's very easy to get lost in this. Ifa is a beautiful religion. Not all of its practitioners are beautiful, and I'm not talking about aesthetically. I mean, as far as, like, you know, their personality or their goodness. You know, you have to find good people if you want to become a good practitioner. So that's your first step. Everything else will take care of itself from there. But pick a good house with good people who are concerned or interested in your well-being and growth. If you can accomplish that, that's the most difficult thing besides, you know, memorizing things. So that's half the battle. So start there for sure. Courtney, I love your videos. Thank you. It's very informative. I have a question. How do you know when it's time to crown? Technically, you're eligible, at least like in our house, to be able to crown Orisha. You need to have your hand of Ifa, right? We need to get the recommendations done from your hand of Ifa, like what literally came out through Iking. We put as a prerequisite to receive a Gungun. And the reason being is because Egung in the Lukumi tradition is a staple part of process. So rather than putting your elders, we'd like yours to be consecrated and able to receive, because it's your ceremony. And then after that, you're eligible to crown. So, I mean, as soon as that, only you can come up with that answer. But I think a great way to arrive at that conclusion is by asking yourself, why are you crowning? You know, if you're crowning for health, now may be the time. If you're doing it for more of the social aspect of things, that may need to be analyzed a little more. If you're somebody that's trying to work, please get crowned right now. You know, we need more, we need better professionals. You got a lot of people with the license right now that have no idea what they're doing. We have Bawalaos who don't know how how to pull ifa or perform a bo or even consultation. Some of them don't know the moyuba. We have olorisha who don't know how to properly interpret the erindi logun. We have a lot of quite a bit or a lack of preparation, right? So if you're somebody that has a real desire and want and love for ifa orisha, get crowned now. If you have the funds, get crowned now because we need you. It's a battle out here, you know. Pick up a shell, you know. So yeah, maybe now.
Baba knows the way.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Konsu. Aboru Aboye. What was your reason for apprenticeship in Isheshe, and how do you utilize them both while performing rituals? Edupe Popo. My reason for my apprenticeship in Isheshe, brother, came, if I'm going to be 10 years in Ifa now, or 11, 10, my godfather introduced me pretty quickly to Lazarito Ofumbile, who's one of my Baba Ifas, right? Possibly the most prolific Bawalao from a hand of Ifa standpoint in Miami. I don't want to put his numbers out there, but I don't know anybody that's initiated more hand of Ifas in Miami than Lazaro. So when I interacted with Lazaro, the first time I saw him practice, I was like, this dude is it. You know what I'm saying? Like, he showed up to the Plante in a pair of LeBrons. Like, you know, he was giving Coco to Orula. I remember that was, like, mind-blowing for me. I said, I got to catch up. You know, I got to learn from this guy, too. And Lazarito, around the time when I met him, and, like, 1 or 2 years went by, and we created a brotherhood, you know what I'm saying? He actually started experimenting with the Sheshe explosion that was happening in Miami. Like, I remember if I did Ifa in 2010, no, Joseph, what am I talking about? 2015. I'm getting older. Around 2015, I did Ifa. And I would say around 2017, 2018, there was like a huge renaissance of Isheshe that was going on, at least from when I got in. So Lazaro really started learning. And just us being around each other and him really, you know, opening my mind to all the concepts over there. Because the first thing I wanted to be was like, no, you know. Because I had heard some of the things that happen over there that are, you know, in stark contrast to Lukumi. And I come from a very traditional house. Like, I was like, But, you know, me just being an academic and being open-minded and really just being a seeker of knowledge and enjoying the study of it so much, I started reading all that he was giving me. I started seeing a couple, you know, hand of Ifas and the way they were performing at Boriru and all these different things. And I said, this is the future to a certain degree. Like, I'm not saying that we have to leave Lukumi, because I'll never do that because I don't see the need to, and it's where my heart is. But when I learned about deities like Egungun, because I had seen paperwork in Lukumi and I was seeing what Lazaro was showing me, I said, dude, this is the one. You know, the deities that I provide from an Isheshe standpoint, I provide them that way because I've been able to recognize that they're the most coherent way of giving it, you know? Because when you look at some of the formats in which it's given in Lukumi, I think that ultimately they're all aspects of the original way of giving it. You know, so it made sense to me. You know, if I was going to establish an Ifa practice, I realized that this was one of the deities that most of my clients were going to need, if not everybody. So I said I should probably learn how to do this correctly. And, you know, just being under him and getting a couple runs in front of him, learning what he taught me, whether it was that, whether it was Orishaje, whether it was Ori, Egbe, you know, any of the various deities I've been able to receive from him and learn from him. Mind you, you know, the people that we were interacting with, you know, people from the Oyo Aitena temple, some of the head priests like of Orishaje and Obatala that came to Miami, we were able to really interact with some very coherent people and get some great knowledge, man. So that's really where it came from. I saw where the religion was going in general, and even though I wasn't trying to become an Isheshe Awo, I still wanted to learn certain things to, you know, enrich my practice. And I really haven't experienced any issues as far as incorporating it, other than with the people who, you know, are closed-minded or feel that, you know, or feel worried about someone else learning something that could possibly, you know, detract someone from there to here, which we don't take part in. But, you know, people make their own decisions. Like, a client has a right to receive what they want with whomever they choose. Just like everybody has a right to choose their doctor, their lawyer, or whatever professional. It's not the product. We're all selling and giving the same thing. It's who you are. That's really what you're selling, is your brand and your personality and your reputation, you know? So that's really what motivated it, being inspired by him and seeing where the religion was going. I guess I had a little bit of vision there to know this is going to, you know, interest a lot of people. Do we choose our Orisha or do they choose us? Well, here's the thing. In Isheshe, we're children of all the Orisha. You initiate into whichever one's compatible with your Odu. In Lukumi, I think they choose us. I think they choose us because, like, for example, I thought I was a son of Shango all the way through. And ironically, my mother's crowned Shango. My grandmother was a daughter of Shango, even though she never crowned. You know, I always thought I was a son of Shango because I was such a huge fanatic of Santa Barbara, and just that was what you saw in my house. So when I went to receive Hand of Ifa, I asked for Obatala first out of respect. I'm like, let me make sure I'm not a child. This is all what's going through an 18-year-old mind who knew absolutely nothing or not as much about Ifa as he thought he did. I'm like, let me ask for Obatala first, get him out the way, and then Chango will say yes, because my godfather always gives 2 free throws. So when I asked and Obatala said no, I said, oh, thank God. You know, I'm going to ask for Chango now, and I'm going to fulfill my destiny as an 18-year-old with long hair and, you know, just acting wild in Miami. And when Shango said no, my whole world collapsed internally. And ironically, at that moment, I think I was going to ask for Babaluaye. And my godfather was like, now it's our turn. And my Yubona of Hand of Ifa, because in the Hand of Ifa, it was Odishe. It says, you don't want to be the child of the Orisha that you're a child of. And he said, let's ask for Oshun before she gets mad at everybody. And in my mind, I wanted to say something crazy to that guy. I'm like, I'm not a son of Oshun. You're crazy, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, because, you know, ignorance, the most feminine Orisha, young testosterone-filled man, a lot of Cuban machismo. I'm like, let's get this out of the way and don't let this guy talk no more. 18 years old. And it came out yes. And I remember I must have been visible on my face. I was crushed. And my godfather said, you okay? I said, I don't know. You know, I don't know how to feel right now. He said, if you only knew that this Orisha is going to be the one that's going to help you facilitate all of your goals and dreams. Because he knew I wanted to be a Babalao. And in that sign, in Odishe, the son of Oshun, it's just a matter of crowning and keeping it moving. So I think they choose us. I think we get the Orisha that we most need. And when you look at, you know, the trajectory of my life, you know, and all the obstacles I've been through, Ochung really provided all of the solutions there, whether it was a fertility journey, whether it was finding true love, which I've been lucky to find with my wife. And, you know, she really provided everything. I actually spoke to Ochung yesterday at the Tamboj. She's very happy with me. So, you know, she's happy with what we're doing. So that's very humbling. But my answer to your question is I think they choose us. I think they see what we need or what we're going to encounter. I think based on our system of Lukumi, the reason we ask that question is to make sure that we are initiating into the Orisha that is going to give us the best chance of success. Being that in the Lukumi tradition, we only crown once, we're very Oyo-centric. We're ultimately the children of Shango in that regard. So I think they choose us, and I thank God they do, because Lord knows we really don't know what we're doing down here.
Baba knows the way.
Thank you so much. Awesome. Do you have any advice for someone with the sign Osalafo Beyo or Mo Chango? So anybody that is Osalafo Beyo, and hi Dad, how are you doing? Anybody that is Osalafo Beyo has to practice Ifa. They cannot avoid Ifa. Osalafo Beyo is Osad de Tutu, where it speaks of where the child of Shango as well as the children of Eshu would practice Ifa at its fullest capacity. Anybody that is Osalafo Beyo that does not practice Ifa can have a lot of turbulence in their life and a lot of obstacles. Because Osalafo Beyo speaks of the famous dinner between God and the devil, right? So in that Odu was where Eshu lived with his father Obatala, or Olodumare, however you want to interpret it. And he saw Abita, or Olosi, or the devil, come through the door. And Eshu immediately wanted to attack him and kick him out. And Obatala was like, hey, he's our guest. And Elegua was like, what are you talking about? So he saw his father sit down with the devil, and they started talking about the universe, business. And they shook hands, and the devil left, and Elegua went running to his father and said, oye, that's evil. He said, no, he may be evil, but he's a necessary evil because he helps me keep the balance. Without him, the universe implodes. So at that moment, Elegua kind of had to realize, like, hey, we have to deal with a little bit of everything here, but we can't avoid that which is in our face. So Osalafo Beo says, either you're here or you're there. So it's very key to be here, and here is Ifa. Through Ifa, we will understand all that's happening outside. But without it, we'll be as lost as those that are there. So Salafo Beo, practice Ifa, study Ifa, reincorporate into Ifa, find motivation, see the light, for sure. Great Odu, one of the best Odus. Kobe, Baba, are Egung and Odung involved as one in ceremony? Oh, heavens, no. If you ever see that happening, please run for the hills. Egung and Odung can never be around each other ever for the rest of eternity. That's in the Odu of Obewenye or Obewehin. They hate each other because Odung felt like Egungun abandoned him. Egung felt like Odung was too needy. So when Odung tried to kill him, the day belonged to Egung and the night belongs to Odung. So never, ever, ever, ever. And never let the uninitiated see Odung, please. Must be magic. Can you explain Oshebile that needs to be learned by the Oluo? So the reason the Babalawo has to learn Oshebile is because it is the coconut's natural frustration with the Babalawo. So the coconut's like, the Babalaos think they're hot stuff. They got to pray this every time, or if not, I'm not going to answer them. So that's really what it is. It's the invocation of the coconut to be able to divine with it as a Babalao. Without it, the coconut doesn't work for us. So some people are like, how come you guys get to learn it and we don't? Believe me, it's not something that you want to say 1,000 times, and unfortunately we have to. One more, guys. One more question. Marie Hippolyte, I have problems. My dogs are eating my offerings for my Orishas. What must I do? Put more offerings for them to eat as long as they don't get sick. Whenever an animal receives an offering, it's a blessing. So, guys, it's been a pleasure. We've been going for an hour. Couple things I want to bring up. Look out for classes. Definitely look out for the gala. Be sure to, subscribe, like, comment, and share. Thank you for all the super chats, and see the light.
Baba Joseph showed the path today. Baba knows the way, we follow the signs. He walks with the Orisha through sacred lines. He speaks with the ancients, he honors the drum. He carries the wisdom where we all come from.